Hello again, and welcome back to the Slow Flowers Show with Deborah Prinzing. This is episode 534. Thanks so much for joining us today. Today, I'm sharing a video recording of the November 20th panel that I moderated for the Tilth Conference, produced by the Tilth Alliance, a Seattle-based organization that works in community with Washington farmers, gardeners, and eaters to build a sustainable, healthy, and equitable food future. When the Tilth Conference planners invited me to propose a presentation, I knew I wanted to bring the conversation of flower farming to this mostly food-focused agricultural event. I proposed the title, Relocalizing Flowers, which is a fantastic phrase that I borrowed from a panel I moderated earlier this summer for the Phipps and Penn State Extension Summer Short Course. I pitched the following to the Tilth planners. There's a heightened interest in local and seasonal flowers as an economic opportunity for farmers and florists alike, fueled by the Slow Flowers movement. And our panel that I proposed of Pacific Northwest local flower experts were gathered together to discuss how the audience could participate in relocalizing our flowers. Each panelist represents an important role on the continuum, from those who grow to sell and design with flowers. They shared best practices for the current consumer climate and answered questions about the progressive momentum that's changing attitudes around local, seasonal, and sustainable flowers. I put out a call to Slow Flowers members in the Seattle area, and I'm so pleased with our panel's diversity of experience and what they had to share. We'll jump right in. I want to introduce you to the panelists, and you'll hear more when we jump over to the recording, but they include Brad Siebe of the Seattle Wholesale Growers Market, Hannah Morgan of Fortunate Orchard, Sarah Wagstaff of SUOT Farm and Flowers, and Tammy Myers of First in Bloom and LORA Bloom. I've edited most of our PowerPoint slides into the presentation, along with 2 short videos from the Seattle Wholesale Growers Market's Farm to Florist series. You'll really enjoy seeing it. Let's jump right in and get started. First, I want to introduce Brad Siebe. Brad is the General Manager of the Seattle Wholesale Growers Market, a farm to florist producers cooperative based in Seattle. He oversees administration, operations, general and financial management, strategic planning, execution, as well as the market's sales and customer relationships. The Seattle Wholesale Growers Market is a farmer-owned cooperative committed to providing the very best the Pacific Northwest has to offer in cut flowers, foliage, and plants. Its mission is to create a sustainable living for its Pacific Northwest member farms by promoting their vibrant and diverse products to the floral industry. All year round, the Seattle Wholesale Growers Market brings the best flowers in the Pacific Northwest to the marketplace. To Brad's left is Sarah Wagstaff. Hi, Sarah. And your bio is on a different drive. Here we go. Sarah Wagstaff is the owner of SUOT Farm and Flowers, based in Burlington, Washington. She is the farmer and owner, and I would call her a farmer florist. Home to not only a no-till urban farm in the hub of Skagit Valley, SUOT is also a hugelkultur demonstration garden and an educational workspace and full-service floral studio. SUOT, S-U-O-T, stands for Small Units of Time. As Sarah says, we know that we aren't able to accomplish everything we want in one day, but little by little we will get there together. I think of that so often when I'm frustrated. Since 2015, she is committed to providing her customers, clients, and community with the mindfully grown flowers, fresh local bouquets, and uniquely stunning arrangements in compostable and recyclable packaging. She's proud to be a local woman-owned business. Her flowers are 100% locally grown in Washington, and she strives to host, promote, and carry other women artists and makers in her retail studio. To Sarah's left and your right is Tammy Myers. And I think maybe we're gonna get the photos on the screen. All right, now you can see their beautiful faces. Tammy is a floral designer and owner of LORA Bloom, an online e-commerce and marketing platform that represents florists aligned with the values of supporting local flower farms and offering foam-free designs. The platform serves as a one-stop shop for customers to order local floral delivery, while participating florists commit to providing great customer service, high-quality, foam-free designs, and a minimum of 80% American-grown floral ingredients. And Tammy and our next guest, our next presenter, Hannah Morgan, will be giving some floral demos, and they will describe what that term foam-free means, which may not mean anything yet to you, but you'll learn quickly. So our last person I want to present, to Tammy's left and your right, is Hannah Morgan. Hannah is owner and lead designer of Fortunate Orchard, a floral studio based in Seattle's Seward Park neighborhood. Hannah holds a BFA degree in one hand and a pair of printing shears in the other. I love that. Her designs are deeply rooted in the seasons of the Pacific Northwest, and she sources primarily from the West Coast, often from the Fortunate Orchard garden, steps away from her work table. So I'm Deborah Prenzing. I'm an instigator, a collaborator, a journalist, and founder of Slow Flower Society, which is a national collective of people who care about sustainable flower farming and sustainable floristry. And our goal is to connect more consumers with the source of their flowers. So I'll just have a few slides at the beginning, and then we'll turn it over to our presenters. Slow Flowers, our goal is to inspire the floral industry and its consumers and professionals through outreach and education, highlighting benefits of local, seasonal, and domestic flowers. All of our presenters are local members of the Slow Flower Society. This is a really helpful snapshot, the state of local flowers, just to give you an idea of what we're working on, what's the landscape. 80% of cut flowers sold in the U.S. are imported mostly from South America, from Ecuador and Colombia. Of course, they're coming from Europe, they're coming from Asia as well. But this is really the David and Goliath story of domestic flower farms. But the good news is that the number of domestic flower farms is increasing, and every 5 years there's a USDA floriculture census, and from 2007 to 2012, and from 2012 to 2017, there was a 16% increase in the number of farms reporting that they're growing summer all of their acreage in flowers. And we have some new flower farmers here today, so that underscores that. USDA also did a study on small-scale farms and value-added crops. And floriculture is the #1 most profitable value-added crop on small-scale farms. And that is for farms producing under 100,000 in wholesale sales, so basically every farm. But floriculture even outpaced things like livestock. So we know that American consumers are asking about the origins of all products, including flowers. Here's just a snapshot of that census. The census was in 2017, the most recent. The report did not come out until 2019, but you can see that the growth was 16% in the last census, and then in the current census. Actually, it's 6,700 farms now that have reported cut flowers and cut floral greens. I was part of a floral industry survey with florists a couple years ago with Florist Review magazine, a reader survey, and this was a question that we asked. Are your customers interested in locally grown and American grown flowers? And this was before the pandemic. 57% of florists reported that yes, there are more farmer florists in my market than ever. My customers are interested in locally grown flowers, and I'm changing the way I do business to put more emphasis on local flowers. And we'll hear about that today from our florists. Last year, Slow Flowers participated in the National Gardening Survey, which is an omnibus survey of over 2,500 households in the U.S., mainly asking about purchasing habits and practices in the home and garden space, but we added a few questions about cut flowers. The report, it was really encouraging to create a baseline so that we can now go back and ask this question every year. 58% of people said that buying local flowers is very or somewhat important to them. 57% said that buying American grown is somewhat or very important to them. And of course, in our own state, we had an initiative a few years ago promoting Washington flowers. And so you may see this logo. I think, Sarah, you still use this logo, don't you? Great. Hashtag Washington flowers or Washington grown?
Washington grown, and local flowers make life better.
Local flowers make life better. So there's a floral continuum that touches everyone from the grower to the designer to the consumer. And we really want to talk about that today. And so I've invited these amazing presenters to join with us. And I first want to turn the mic over to Brad Siebe.
Good morning, mentioned, I'm the general manager of the Seattle Wholesale Growers Cooperative. We are all farmer-owned. We have 15-member farms that have the cooperative, and they range from farms up near Bellingham, clear down to Central Oregon, down the Eugene area. So we have quite a diverse range of growing conditions and microclimates available, which is really wonderful for all of our different grower farms. As Deborah mentioned, part of our mission as a cooperative is to make sure that our farms are sustainable, can make a sustainable living. And so the cooperative works with all the farms to help move and sell their products. And the cooperative was formed 10 years ago, and it was originally down in Georgetown off of Airport Way in an old brewery, and outgrew that location, and we were moved over to a larger warehouse in Georgetown right now where we're currently located. It's very central to the flower market here for the florists in the Seattle area, and so we have a strong customer base that we've built over the past 10 years, which works really well. So we have quite a diversity of product. We do feature crops that are seasonally appropriate because the Northwest obviously has growing conditions that are very unique to the area. There's certain crops that can be grown here in the Pacific Northwest that you can't even grow in California. California is one of the next largest flower producing regions here in the United States, followed by Washington and Oregon pretty much. So we have a strong diversity of products that are offered seasonally. Say with the frosts and freezes, that brings stuff out, but we're just finishing up a lot of the fall season with the mums, and we're moving into a lot of the evergreens and other textural elements we have for the holiday seasons at this point in time. But in the seasons, we offer quite a large selection. A lot of our farms are a combination of small growers, and we have some larger farms that have quite a large acreage. And as Deborah mentioned earlier, selling through floriculture is a high profitable product, and so you can get a lot better margins and sell more product that has a higher value than you can oftentimes on edibles. So what we like to do, and some farms like to do, is even incorporate some floriculture along with your agriculture, because there's a lot of benefits to doing that, because a lot of times a lot of your flowering crops are beneficial for your agriculture because they help bring in pollinators and other beneficial insects and bees and so forth. So it's a really nice conjoining effort. In fact, a lot of our farms originally started out as growing, edible crops primarily, and then as they started getting into it and going to farmers markets and selling their product, they would bring bouquets or cuts to it, and many of them found out over time that at the end of the day at the farmers market, they'd sold most all of their flowers, but only portions of their vegetables. So they were becoming more profitable selling their flowers and their vegetables. So several of them have actually transitioned over to selling 100% flowers now and growing for it and converted all their acreage. And they're continuing to expand their farms by leasing more spaces or buying more farms over time to increase their floral production. So it's been really beneficial for a lot of our growers to have the market. Collectively, as a cooperative, the market can actually do more for an individual member than you can as yourself. Everybody knows farming is very challenging, has a lot of time requirements, and when you're at a farmer's market or trying to make sales contacts and sales leads for things, you're not able to be out in the field growing your crops or harvesting or doing those things that make the most sense for you. So by having a cooperative, collectively the groups of all the members can benefit from that by having a unified sales team and sales force. So our market's open 5 days a week, 6 a.m. to 1 p.m. And we sell primarily to the floral trades, but we've also expanded hours to the retail public. So we do sell to the public on Tuesdays and Fridays, for example, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And we charge a 30% markup additional because we want to protect our wholesale customers. And so typically, the floral customers come early in the morning, they get the first pick, the best selection, and then we get products all the time during the week in shipments that our growers bring in to restock at the market, so it's always fresh material, which is another advantage of buying locally, because oftentimes flowers that are shipped in from outside areas have been packaged and sitting in boxes for days and days, and they're not the freshest cut. Most of our flowers, when they come to the market, many of them get cut within 24 hours of arriving at the market, so they're very fresh. And of course, they're processed immediately, put out on the floor, and then we have coolers there where we store them. So it's a different way of presenting at the market. So it's a nice feel. for customers to come in. It's a great experience where they can actually see and touch and smell the flowers. And the other benefit, a lot of local flowers, you have the ability to grow colorful product that doesn't ship very well. And those flowers actually have a lot of great benefit because a lot of those have greater fragrance. And so many of the roses and other flowers that are bred to be grown commercially in South America or Africa or other countries, they've been bred for durability and shipping. And a lot of those have lost their fragrance and their essence, basically. So having locally grown product that's unique, and again, there's a strong demand for the local market for a lot of items like that. So the market, as I mentioned, really has a strong following. It offers a variety of channels for selling. We also have grocery channels, so we sell through mass merchants as well. And so there's different opportunities for growers to sell depending on volumes and different crops we're producing through these different sales channels, as well as the public operations too. So we just have a variety of sales channels that we can sell that same product through, that if you're as a single farmer trying to market your product, you're very limited in your outreach because you're out there having to make 17 or 20 different phone calls every week to try to move your product versus having one point of contact where everything's aggregated together at the market. Another good benefit of selling through a cooperative is that we really want to make sure that all of our members are successful, so we all work together as a team. There's a lot of collaboration and community.
How many peony plants that I have total? Close to 40,000 plants. Peonies is one of my favorite because not very many flowers can hold up for 3 or 4 weeks dry storage. Peonies are kind of tough. As long as they're deep enough, they survive. It really makes me so happy that people are ready to purchase my peonies. That makes me really happy and gets me excited to work harder and produce more flowers for my customers.
Gonzalo and his family have created the most spectacular place. I am giddy with excitement to be here because his product is over the top amazing. To me, part of the art of floral design is I want to help people see nature and their own lives in a new way.
Like every other flower farmer in the world, I swear, we spend the winter going through catalogs and looking at pictures. And I saw a picture and I went, man, that is such a beautiful flower. Lisianthus, I like the form, I like the shape, I like the fact that it looks fragile, but it's tough as nails. It's mostly an event flower because Lisianthus holds really well out of water. It doesn't have a scent either.
It adds so much dimension. It'll be listed as a white flower, but when you reflex a Lisianthus, you can really see inside the flower. You can see how many different colors are in there. And that's the part about Lisianthus that I love, because it really accentuates what else you have going on in this arrangement.
I'm very lucky to be only 10 minutes away from the growers market, which is a very, very large part of my shopping and a huge part of me as a business. I don't think I would be in this business if there wasn't the Seattle Wholesale Growers Market, if I didn't have access to local flowers and foliage, both through the market and also through different farmers and collectors that I've just built relationships with. So I'm gonna talk about some of the products that I like to use, and a lot of these products, for me as a city dweller, I pay people for things like teasel and snowberry and things that if I had all the time I would go and I would gather it, but I don't. And so I'm so grateful when I can pay somebody for, a big twig of lichen covered branches. Like, I pay money. And so I'm grateful when there are people who are willing to gather these things. I mean, I use also, of course, so many cultivated crops, but at this time of year in particular, my eye goes to things like this that really, in my designs, like, convey people right to the outdoors, and I think that's what people respond to. So I'm gonna try not to make a huge mess. I'll have to get a vacuum after I'm done, I'm sorry. But I'll just do a little designing as I talk, and please ask me questions if anything sparks in you with any of these materials. So I am working here in this vessel, as Deborah mentioned, foam-free is a term that has become, oh, thank you so much, Tammy, for being very helpful. Got it?
Her assistant.
Yeah, really, you could put in the hot spot. Thank you. So foam-free is the new standard, I think, for floral design. For many, many years, people who did floral design used something called foam. There's probably a more fancy word for it, but it's this green stuff that probably you're familiar with. Thanks. There you go. Oh, this is great. So foam has proven to be an ecological disaster, and so now most florists, I think, are moving towards other alternatives. Here I have chicken wire in my vessel and tape, and it works like a charm. It's the way that people did it for years and years before plastics and foam came to dominate so much of our life, and so it's really not hard at all to find alternatives to it. I think in a way I'm lucky that I came to this game relatively recently, kind of, you know, maybe 10 years ago, and so I never have used foam, and so for me this is very instinctual to avoid that. I think for some other florists who have been doing this for a little longer, they've had to come up with different ways to work around habits that they have because they've been in the industry from a time before we realized what the impacts of some of these materials are. And speaking of the ecological elements, what you guys are doing at the growers market circumvents so much of the nasty business of the floral trade that comes from shipping from South America, which is a complicated topic, and you know, I'm not here to, well, I kind of am, but you know, there are many reasons to import flowers, but there are many, many reasons not to. And for me, particularly living in this part of the country, we are so rich and so blessed with some amazing growers. I mean, like, I see people on Instagram talking about flowers that they're getting from Italy, from Japan, and they do not compete with what I have access to. So that was a great point. This woman was asking, you know, if you go to Costco, like, what is your impression of the flowers that you see there? And for me, they do not speak to me. And again, I don't think I would be doing this if that was the, you know, palette that I had to choose from.
Right.
And I think that is a big part of why people respond when they get arrangements from growers, I mean, from designers like us who are using local flowers, is that a lot of people haven't seen them yet or aren't aware of what is available to them.
It's unique.
Yeah, well, it is to a lot of people because they're more used to like the FTD style flowers.
Right.
And then when you see like the luminous blooms that are coming out of Gonzalo's farm or Everyday Flowers or any of the growers at the market, but there are people all over this part of the country that are growing these blooms that when you see them, you can't turn back, you know? I mean, right now we're getting stuff from California, which I'm appreciative of, but we're all just like waiting until the hellebores come back. We're very lucky here that there is a very short season where there's no like flowers. And that's like from now, I would say, until February, when that first frost hits until February. But in the meantime, I use California flowers, and also I use things like this, you know, that can be a stand-in if I'm doing a restaurant account or something where it's a little less traditional and people aren't depending on a bloom to be there. I can use all sorts of different, you know, visual elements to represent that mass and that, you know, visual interest that you get from a flower. She's asking, shopping seasonally, are you more creative? And for me, I absolutely respond creatively by those constraints that being seasonal brings upon me. And also I just get so excited, you know, I mean, I'm excited when it's time for the lichen branches or when, you know, the next thing happens. It's like every couple months, you know, I walk onto the floor at the growers market, I'm like, oh, it's here, you know, and it's funny because you'd think I would know it was coming, but every year I'm surprised, like, oh, I forgot about that. The most unusual element I've used in a design, actually today there's a small wedding happening on Capitol Hill at a bike shop, and this was one of those very dreamy situations where the person who's getting married said, just whatever you want, just have fun. And they were really into the idea of being very seasonal and doing something that is really reflective of where we are now. So a big part of their arrangements today, I used reindeer moss. Is that what it is? The bright green moss you see on the east side of the mountains. So my husband fishes, and so when we go out there on public lands, I go responsibly blow things are blown down. I get these little chunks of bright green moss that just stay perfect forever. And so I used a huge amount of this chartreuse moss in these arrangements. I'm gonna post it later after they see it. So I thought that's pretty unusual. And I think even teasel is getting less unusual because you guys are stocking it, but for a long time it's this is the stuff that drives you crazy when you're trying to hike near water or whatever, but I think it's a great element. Snowberries are also, this time of year, these are cultivated by Jello Mold, is that right? Yeah, and so they're in the Skagit Valley, and so this is this amazing bright pop that you can get at this time of year that is not a flower, but who needs flowers when you have this? This is a dried protea, so this is a California product, and I don't have a fresh one with me, but it's pink or white and big and beautiful orb, and now they figured out that we also love them dried. So this is one of the dried products that they have at the growers market, that this time of year, it's like a big hoarding time for me, where I get all the dried stuff that I can so that I have it to use through the lean months. How's it looking on the front? It's hard to tell.
It's beautiful.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
It's hard designing backwards.
Yeah.
So this is from my garden. It's just a sedge grass, which, I get a lot of my materials also from nurseries. And so this grows in my garden like crazy, and it's turned out to be a great, kind of from a design perspective, it kind of creates a wispy element that I think is really nice and kind of softens the lines. So I like using that to kind of break up the vessel, kind of create a little bit of a wispy wild thing going on here. I also just used this bright orange ilex berry. I don't know if this is from Oregon, but
That's from up in Skagit as well.
Oh, okay, great.
From Choice Bold Farm.
Oh, this is Choice. Yeah, so this is this amazing bright element at this time of year, and also lasts forever and ever. And so these are just some seed pods that I got from my garden. It's like a sort of a sunflower little thing that grows there, but I actually like it way better dead. So I always save it. The birds get some of it, and I get some of it. Thank you so much. If anyone has any questions after, or did you have a quick question?
I do.
Yeah.
What would you sell this for?
Oh my gosh. Well,
To make a profit as a business owner.
Yeah, well, so I've decided in my business, my arrangements are kind of standard by size. I don't want to lose money, obviously, but I've learned not to be well, this costs $1 and I look at it more now, it's kind of more elevated, right? As a piece, not just the parts. So something like this would probably be about $150. And something like this would probably be more applicable in a restaurant setting, or I probably wouldn't make this unless somebody specifically I knew they were ready for something kind of far out. I would probably include flowers. But yeah, this size would be about $150.
And I am going to talk a little bit about why flowers. So I don't know everyone's background of what experience you have with flowers or growing flowers or eating flowers or whatever, but something about today made you come into our room, and there's some interest there. And I expect if you're at a Tilth Conference, you're probably interested in food and food production, and so flowers might be a little bit of a stretch. And so I really wanted to talk about that. Why would you introduce them into your production or into your home or into your growing space? And what's important to me is conveying, I guess I would say, value, right? Anything that we produce should have value, either to us or to our farm or to the customer that's hopefully purchasing it. And so things in the U.S. are conveyed with money, right? If you spend money, then something has value. And I really balk at that because there's so many things in my life that have value and meaning that don't cost anything. The relationships that I've built with people, the love that I feel for myself or with others, and those things are really hard to convey with a carrot or with a bowl of lettuce. And yes, we do have to eat, but it's not quite the same meaning and connection, but when you hand somebody a single stem, that's impactful. No one ever is like, oh, no thanks, not hungry. They're like, for me? And it makes that connection of, you think I'm valuable? You think that I'm important? And or it brings up a conversation of, what is this for? Maybe there's an important ritual. Maybe this is a milestone in your life. I've thought about this over the last few years as I've been a florist, transitioning from not just farming, but also incorporating floristry, and noticing that every single milestone in our life is documented with flowers. Every holiday has a specific flower or greenery or crop associated with it. And those are important and impactful as like marking the days and the months and the weeks of our life together, and ultimately our death, right? Plants have a life cycle of the seed germinating and waiting underground, or a bulb waiting to come up and have its time to shine. And there's definitely those moments where we're feeling robust and feeling abundant. And the name of my farm is Small Units of Time, and so feeling that bloom. And then there's a time where it's just not happening today, and there's miles of weeds, and there's something that just never sells at the farmer's market. And then there's that moment where it's a dead seed pod, and you're like, I can relate. I can relate to that moment, right? And that's what flowers do for us. So whether it's at your farm stand, or whether it's just in your yard and it's a weed and you're gonna stick it in a little tiny bud vase next to your toilet, and every time you're in there, you feel like, I matter. I'm important. And I have a connection to something that's so much larger than just today and just those miles of weeds, but I have a connection to other humans. And I feel like humans are important. I think so often we're reminded that sometimes it doesn't feel like humans are important, but I feel like humans are important. It doesn't matter what age you are, what color you are, what you look like, what you matter, and your feelings matter. And so maybe the flowers that you're purchasing or growing are just for you, and that's great. That is totally enough. And if that's where you're at, do it. Please plant a flower, or please pick a flower, or please pick some weeds out of somebody else's yard with permission. And if you are ready to make a connection with somebody else and bring that into their lives and participate in those rituals for them, maybe you're the one that's designing a condolence arrangement where somebody has just lost the most important person in their life. You get to be a little gifter of nature, of reminding them, hey, they were once a seed and they had their bloom, and this is their moment where they're transitioning into something that is still beautiful, but is different than what we think of as, the Flora arrangement. It is always everlasting, a kind of plasticized, weird thing that isn't relatable, right? But the local connection, the seasonal connection to the tangibility is something that I want to talk about today. So that's who I am. This is a little photo of my space. I collect all the dried bits and baubles. I hoard them too, and I hopefully share them. But we grow a little bit of everything. We grow year-round, and I try to utilize as much as I can in each of my design arrangements. One little trick that I do to make that connection of and the cycle of life is in every single arrangement that I create, I try to create something in bud, add something in bloom, and something that's passed. And so it has that relatability. We have a floral studio that's a retail space. And so that's one way in which we engage with our customers in person. We're celebrating our 1-year anniversary of having a retail space. So we have that retail space where we connect with people there. We also have a website where things are, you can purchase or interact with and sign up for workshops year-round. We mostly do a lot more workshops in the fall and winter when the garden is resting quite a bit. That's a good time for us to connect. I think people feel that with the holidays coming up. We want to gather, we want to be together, and how can we do that safely? And sometimes you can't be together in person, but you can send flowers, and that reminds them of, oh, I am there in person. I said a little bit of nature, and a little bit of nature in you, and there's a little bit of nature in me, and there's that connection that we have with each other. We also sell wholesale, and so that provides other local florists in our area with our product. And so they can experience those things that are fresh and in season, and maybe a little weird, and maybe a little awesome, and we think they're worth stopping and appreciating, and so we include those in our arrangements as well as make them available
introduce Tammy Myers is just such a versatile, creative, and Tammy, do you want to come up here to speak, or are you going to stay there?
I'll just stay right here.
Okay, I'll move the slides for you then. This was an introduction to I don't think Tammy has this homepage anymore, but I love it so much because she had the tagline from America with Love when she started her First in Bloom platform, and I always thought that was a great message. So thank you, Tammy.
I'm going to kind of tell a story, just, you know, how I've been in the floral industry. In 2014, I opened a local floral business in the Issaquah, Sammamish, East Side area. I had recently left the corporate world. I have a heavy e-commerce background. I worked for a company that you all would know for online travel. And I had burnout. I had a young son, and I had always wanted to have a small business. And when I was in college, I worked at a flower shop part-time. So, you know, I liked flowers. I do not have an agricultural or horticultural background, so everything you see up until today is self-taught. I did come from Eastern Washington, so, you know, I always hung around the farming community, but nothing hardcore for me. So, I have done everything from weddings, local delivery, business subscriptions, corporate events, and I always got a lot of questions from people. Hey, I need to ship or send flowers to somebody in, you know, Washington D.C. Do you know of a good florist? I'm like, no. They're like, I don't want to go to the typical online retailer that we all, you know about. And they're like, I want flowers like yours. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I'll see if I can hunt somebody down online. And then, you know, as I grow to be a part of this floral community, I start to talk with fellow florists, and they too are like, I wish, you know, people love my products, but I wish that I could, it's hard to become noticed online. And we all know about, you know, Google ads and placement and Facebook and all those complicated things that are very expensive. And so I decided to pivot, and I thought that I would build a mobile app called LORA Bloom. And I got way in over my head. It became very expensive. And when I realized that I wasn't going to be able to afford the mobile app development, I decided to pivot again, and I just built an online site. And I used the Shopify platform, but I did build it myself. I'm fortunate to have a lot of you know, consultants in kind of the online world that I can talk to when I need to. And what I wanted to create was this platform. It's a direct consumer online platform where, like Deborah said earlier, the consumer can come to the site. It's driven by zip code and area. And I think one of the slides kind of broke down some of the areas where I have florists, but it is driven by zip code. And you should be able to, as a consumer, go there. Florists then list their arrangements, just like you would see from an FTD or a Teleflora. But all of the flowers are, they need to be a minimum of 80% USA grown. And I say 80% because sometimes it gets, this time of year is really hard for us as florists because the customer wants fresh product to be, you know, to purchase or to have sent to a loved one. And so we still have to deliver on that. But we have the wonderful growers market that we know where to get all the products that we need. So I launched in January of 2020, right before COVID. And, you know, everything tanked completely. And while there was no business, I was like, I gotta generate some business somehow because I want to be able to, I needed to pay at least, you know, cover my expenses that I had. How can I do this, and how can I help the florists that are on the platform? And so something that a new florist would do to gain traction and visibility in the community that they're in is they would do a pop-up. And so I partnered with some local coffee shops. I partnered with Woods Coffee and another one in the Bellevue, Redmond area called Cypress Coffee, and they allowed for me to set up pop-ups. And then and Sarah was actually one of the florists, and so at each one of those different locations, I featured a different florist, and we sold flower bouquets. And it wasn't a ton of money, but we were able to help cover some expenses. So after that, I noticed, because I pay attention to the analytics on my site, that my traction on the site overall it had really bumped up. And I think it was because of that 2-month concentration of just really being out there, that it really helped the sales that were online, because it had really plummeted during COVID. I'll just be completely honest. And then something really amazing happened. I got a feature on the 425 Business Magazine in December, and that was just like, you know, that was like the cherry on top for the year, because it was a bad year. Anyway, from that, this year I have kind of pulled back in order to make expenses, to cover my expenses. I have had to step back into the floral space, the design space. So I've pulled back my business, First in Bloom on the east side. It's actually crazy busy right now. Like, I'm having a difficult time keeping up. But I also cannot ignore that we do live in an online shipping world. And I really held off on a shippable product for a long time. And I just, finally, I'm like, I just can't ignore this anymore. I gotta figure out how to make this work. So I developed a bouquet that is very similar to the pop-up bouquets that I sold, or that we sold last year. And I wanted people who don't live in the area, who couldn't come to a pop-up, I wanted them to be able to experience what local and sustainable is in just a small form, a shippable form. So, this week I actually sent out, I partnered with this local nonprofit called Stella Stars, and they raise funds for a school in Kenya. And my bookkeeper happens to be the board member, and she asked me if I might like to help raise some funds for this school. And so I was like, yeah, cool, let's make it a shippable product. And so this is the actual Stella Stars bouquet that I sold. And so when you get it, it comes like this. And this is a work in progress. So this is not always perfect. And I did open it just to take a peek to see what it looked like. Because this is it has been in the box for 2 days. So I'm trying to be very eco-friendly, just like Hannah. I don't use any floral foams at all. I haven't used floral foam for years and years. Hopefully this looks all right. So this is the bouquet. And you know, when you get flowers shipped like this, they're gonna look a little weak and limp. But as soon as you put them in, you recut them and you put them in water, and they will rehydrate and come right back. So let's pretend that there's water in this. This again is meant to be the postcard. It kind of gives some little basic instructions, because everyone should be able to do this. And then I always try and list where the product came from the farm. And this time it happens to be Ojeda Farms from the Chehalis Valley. And because we're in the winter, there is a lot that's coming from California. So anyway, everyone should be able to do this. They open it. It's eco-friendly for the most part. It comes in a little eco-fresh wrap. And you can be as much of a florist as you want. You can break it down. You can do whatever you want. the idea is that you get a little piece of local in your home, at your home, from far away. And my ultimate goal for this is to be able to sell this at a major online retailer, which we all know who that is. And some people might not think that's a good idea, but I assure you there are companies out. This isn't going to look beautiful, okay, guys?
This is great, Tammy.
It would take time to make that look like what Hannah's done right now. And then my ultimate goal for that is that there are companies out there that sell millions and millions of dollars every day, but it doesn't represent local and sustainable. And I believe that there should be representation of local and sustainable, just like every other product that is out there on e-commerce. And so that is my goal.
Well, thank you all so much for being here today. We hope we inspired you and opened some windows of new ideas for you. And have a great rest of the conference. Hey, thanks so much for joining me today. As we encourage the audience to plug into the local flower community in the Pacific Northwest, we wanted to communicate the following messages. Number one, the incredible opportunity to grow flowers as a facet of any farm's crop mix. Number two, demand for local flowers offers new market channels for all farmers. And number three, local flowers are a value-added crop when combined with floral design. So you'll be able to watch the replay video of today's show along with hearing the downloadable podcast link, which you can find in next week's Slow Flowers podcast for episode 534 at deborahprinzing.com. I will also provide a downloadable PDF of our slide deck. And as a bonus, I'm going to be giving away a cute Tilth tote bag. You can see it right here. It's a canvas tote that was part of the package for registrants last week. If you want to be included in the drawing, post a comment here online where you're viewing today, either on YouTube or on our Slow Flowers Facebook page, and we'll add you to next week's drawing after the podcast airs. Before we wrap up, I have a few sponsor thank yous. This show is brought to you by slowflowers.com, the free online directory to more than 880 florists, shops, and studios who design with local, seasonal, and sustainable flowers. And it's the conscious choice for buying and sending flowers. Thank you to our lead sponsor for 2021, Farm Grow Flowers. Farm Grow Flowers delivers iconic burlap wrap bouquets and lush, abundant arrangements to customers across the U.S., supporting more than 20 U.S. flower farms by purchasing more than $9 million of U.S.-grown fresh and seasonal flowers and foliage annually. Discover more at farmgrowflowers.com. Thank you to Roadie, an on-demand delivery company offering affordable, same-day and scheduled delivery. With a network of friendly local drivers who handle each delivery with care and one-on-one support from a designated account manager, Roadie guarantees a smooth and reliable delivery experience from pickup to delivery. And with no contract commitment, you only pay for what you need when you need it. So sign up for your first delivery at roadie.com/slowflowers. Use the promo code slowflowers, that's one word, to get $5 off. Thank you to the Gardener's Workshop, which offers a full curriculum of online education for flower farmers and farmer florists. Online education is more important than ever this year, and you'll want to check out the course offerings at thegardenersworkshop.com. And thank you to flowerfarm.com. Flower Farm is a leading wholesale flower distributor that sources from carefully selected flower farms to offer high-performing, fresh flowers sent directly from the farm straight to you. You can shop by flower and country of origin at flowerfarm.com. Find flowers and foliage from California, Oregon, Florida, and Washington by using the Origin Selection tool in your search. Learn more at flowerfarm.com. Thanks so much for joining us today. The Slow Flowers Show is a member-supported endeavor, and I value our loyal members and supporters. If you're new to our weekly show and our long-running podcast, check out all of our resources at slowflowerssociety.com and consider making a donation to sustain Slow Flowers' ongoing advocacy, education, and outreach activities. You can find the donate button in the column to the right at deborahprinzing.com. I'm Deborah Prenzing, host and producer of the Slow Flowers Show and podcast. Next week, you're invited to join me in putting more slow flowers on the table, one stem, one vase at a time. The content and opinions expressed here are either mine alone or those of my guests alone, independent of any podcast sponsor or other person, company, or organization. Happy Thanksgiving, and I'll see you next week.